Welcome to the Happy, Healthy Life Podcast with your hosts, Rob and Randy, who reveal the truth, the lies, and confusion about health so that you are no longer the victim to mainstream medical dogma and you are the hero to your own happy, healthy story.
If you've ever asked, what should I eat to lose weight? Today, we are going to answer that question once and for all.
And the truth is, it's not about eating less. It's about eating right. When you eat foods that heal your metabolism, your body starts burning fat automatically and it feels effortless.
Welcome back to the Happy Healthy Life Podcast with your host, Rob and
Randy.
And we are
The Happy Healthy Guys.
We are. Today, you are going to love this episode because we are going to be talking about that one question that we always get from people. Hey guys, what do I need to eat in order to lose weight?
Everybody wants to know, what do I eat? What are your favorite foods? Everybody, it's probably the most popular question we get.
Yeah, and you have to unpack that. You really got to actually look a little bit further upstream from this because we got to talk about what it is that these foods that you should be putting into the body and how they trigger three different aspects of how your body works, being satiety, autophagy, and thermogenesis. Those are big words. We're going to unpack those three big words right there, but you got to understand them in order to make sure that you're putting the right quality nutrients into your body to make sure that your body is burning fat for fuel. And it also knows how to not just burn fat for fuel, it also knows how to burn carbohydrates for fuel because guess what? On this list of fat-burning foods and foods to lose weight, there are carbohydrates on there.
Oh man, it's some of my favorite carbohydrates. Happen to be some of the most nutritious and metabolically friendly. And all of these foods we'll be talking about today actually trigger the three metabolic pathways, which gets the biggest bang for your buck. And all these foods taste incredible.
So let's talk about, talking point number one is this, is that, why what it is that you eat, why the nutrients that you're putting into your body, they matter more than even how much. I think because we've been taught, and one of the things that we always talk about, how it's not about reducing your calories to lose weight or exercising more. It really is about getting quality nutrients into your body. So let's debunk that myth about the counting points, the calorie counting, and let's talk about the quality of what it is that we're putting into our bodies.
Yeah, this is a great starting place here because, we've said this a million times. We'll keep saying it. Stop counting calories. Really, calories don't even really exist. If you be honest, it's a measurement of heat. It's the biggest scam we've ever been sold. You want to count nutrients. So let me repeat that. Stop counting calories. Start counting nutrients. So when we talk about nutrients, we're talking about the most bioavailable, nutrient-dense real foods with the least amount of toxins and anti-nutrients. And when you eat real food, as y'all know, we have several acronyms. We're acronym guys, but when you simply eat real food, when you eat single ingredient food items, you're going to give your body tons of nutrients. Some of these nutrients we know of, but there's probably more that we don't know of. We probably have more questions than we do have answers, but we know, and if it's ancestrally consistent, we can trust it that our ancestors were eating these real foods. They definitely weren't counting calories. And you think about it, some studies even suggest that, our ancestors, really even maybe 100, 150 years ago, they were eating around 3,500 to 3,800 calories per day, yet the obesity rate was under 1%. So it's definitely not calories in, calories out. Something else is going on. It's really about the nutrients.
It is about the nutrients because these nutrients are important. Those three things that we were talking about at the very beginning, for example, satiety. Satiety is when your body knows that it's full, doesn't want any more food. It doesn't need any more food.
You don't overeat.
And you don't overeat.
Yeah.
And that happens because of hormonal signaling happening inside your body. If you go back and you listen to previous episodes where we were talking about GLP-1s and the signaling that's happening with that and letting your body know that you're full and what's happening in the brain. And remember, one of the things that we even talked about back then was how about even just smelling food or looking at the food is already signaling this area inside your body to start telling you that your body is actually becoming full before you even eat the food. The problem is that a lot of people are putting food in their bodies that aren't nutrients. They're packed full of toxins and chemicals and all of these different things that actually interfere with that signaling. And what that does is that tells your body that, you know what, I need to eat more, because your body is starving for the nutrients that it needs in order to be able to correctly have these hormone signalings happening. So what you're doing is now putting yourself into a situation where your body could be going into fat storage instead of fat burning, just by putting in. And you could be even putting in, if you listen to the last episode that we did, we were talking about, for example, it may not have even been the last episode. I think it was when we were at the grocery store and we were talking about like these different crackers that are like heart healthy crackers,
Yeah.
or they've got decreased calories in them, but they're chock full of all these toxic chemicals, which is stopping or slowing down the signaling, so your body isn't feeling satiated or it's not feeling full.
Yeah, when you're shopping for the food, you're preparing the food. Now everything's about convenience and it's processed, and protein bars and protein shakes and prepackaged foods. You're bypassing what you're talking about. Heck, another little simple trick, not even a trick, but a really way to help support your metabolism from a satiety perspective is what we did this morning. We had a business meeting this morning and we sat outside in the sun, and the sun actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that digestive component where you relax and digest, and it actually helps you fully become satiated when you eat the food, because you're going to absorb more of the nutrients. How cool is that? Be outside, eat your food, more satiety.
It's absolutely amazing. And that's why people, and even like in the business meeting that we were having, the doc that we were talking to, he was even talking to us about how he's tried all kinds of different diets, and,
Yeah.
and the one he named was keto, and actually he named two. He talked about keto and he talked about fasting.
Starving yourself.
hmm
Yeah.
And so, and the thing that was most common for him is that as soon as he would stop the fasting or he would stop the keto, and this is somebody who he would say like he would fast for weeks and weeks
Yeah.
and weeks, and as soon as he stopped doing those things, he would gain all the weight back, and he was gaining the weight back for a lot of different reasons. But if we're talking about the foods that were, which is what this episode is about, he didn't have the right nutrients in his body. But not only did he not have the right nutrients in his body, he had not trained his body how to be metabolically flexible.
Mhm.
He hadn't trained his body how to be able to correctly utilize carbohydrates for energy or utilize fats for fuel and energy as well. And so that was what we were talking to him about. So he's actually going to be, and that's why we also created our thin method. So he's
Yep.
getting ready to start our thin method in our program himself, because even as a doctor and somebody who had been teaching his patients how to eat, it was still a version of calories in and calories out. And he was looking for a better way, and he was looking at a way to be able to help heal his metabolism.
Yeah, that just goes to show you can have discipline, which he does,
Oh my
and
gosh,
eat
but when
real
he
food, which he does, and still struggle if something's metabolically off and you don't have that flexibility. So that's the fun part about a healthy metabolism. And like we talked about, some of the foods we're going to reveal, these are some of the most nutrient dense foods. They're carbohydrates, they taste good, and they're going to support your body in the fat burning process and satiety.
Yeah, so let's talk about, okay, so it's probably our favorite food to be able to help with this satiety aspect. It's getting really good, healthy fats into your body. Healthy fats, like our favorite being
SET
STT
oil.
oil.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, short chain triglyceride. These are fats right here that are really training that hormone signaling inside your body to be able to make you feel full or
Yep.
make you feel satiated. That's why one of the questions that we got even from one of our members last week was even going out to eat, how to be able to go out to eat and training their bodies. And one of the things that we said is, well, what you could do is you just need to make sure that your meal has SCT oil. And even if you started with the SCT oil, that's going to help you to feel way more satiated, way more rapidly.
No, no, and specifically saturated fats, and not even just the saturated fats, the short chain fats, which is really what SCT oil is. It's a short chain triglyceride. These are fats that go right into the liver through the portal vein, and that's where they create energy. You can't even store these fats really as body fat. and it's our favorite, but other things too. You can use things like grass-fed butter. You can use ghee. You could use even coconut oil if you wanted a non-animal based saturated fat. But these fats are important, and we were sold the lie years ago that if fats make you fat, it's not fat makes you fat, it's the wrong fat that makes you fat. So we'll talk about some of the best fats as well that go great with some of the foods that you can prepare on a daily basis that definitely provide the satiety, because you're going to trigger certain hormones like cholecystokinin, leptin, ghrelin, even adiponectin, even the FGF21 pathway. I'm not going to get into that. We talked about that in previous episodes. Obviously, GLP-1 activity. All of these hormones that are there in your body naturally are triggered and supported to create the satiety with good, healthy, stable fats. Saturated fats also don't break down and oxidize and cause free radical damage like your monounsaturated fats, and definitely not like PUFA or polyunsaturated fatty acids like omega-3s and omega-6s.
Yeah, so one of my favorites as well, even as we were having a lunch yesterday, had some eggs, some SCT oil,
Yep.
some butter, had some, and we'll talk about this as far as the protein sources, but one of the other things that we had with that was avocado. Avocado, which is, so I guess you could say what do we call avocados? Is it a fat or
Is it a fruit or a fat? It's a fat.
It's fat.
It's a fruit fat.
So avocados as well. So the whole point of this is the fact that these help to be able to make cravings disappear because of the hormone signaling that's happening inside the body. So physiologically, you're retraining your body how to be able to properly utilize energy coming from fats versus carbohydrates, because it should be able to go and back and forth like that. So let's talk about what are some good protein that can be able to help with the hormonal signaling to be able to help with satiety. What would some of those proteins be?
Well, the best sources of protein, flat out number one, are going to be ruminant animals. So obviously cows are our favorite, but bison, elk, deer, antelope, we're talking about, and lamb, these are ruminant animals. And we say ruminant, we're talking about multi-chambered stomach animals. A cow is such a magical creature. It's got 4 stomachs, and it's got like 8 feet of these specialized fermentation chambers within their digestive tract that we don't have as humans, guys. We have 1 stomach, we're monogastric. They also have a completely different terrain of bacteria, which also helps ferment and create certain short chain fats, certain long chain fats, certain polyphenolic compounds. And they've also got about a 200-pound capacity to eat. So cows are magical. And so that's why they are great, because they eat the grass, they eat the grains, they eat the carbs, and then they turn them into this incredible healing food. Versus humans, we're not really meant to live off grass. And so cows turn grass into incredible protein, nutrients, healthy fats. Let's leave all the salads to the professionals, and the professional salad eaters are the ruminant animals.
Yeah, one of the things that these ruminant animals do as a good nutrient-dense source of protein and the nutrients that your body needs is that it really aids and helps in thermogenesis, which is one of those 3 things that we talked about at the very top of this. And so if we're looking at this really from a physiological standpoint and a cellular standpoint, the thermogenesis is when your body is increasing your internal fat burning furnace, right? And so that's activated by putting not only the good, healthy, saturated fats into your body, but also these nutrient-dense proteins that you're getting from these ruminant animals.
Yeah, because it's the best source of quality protein, the amino acid profile. And, there just really isn't any plant toxins or anti-nutrients in meat. Healthy quality animals that are ruminant, that is going to be the best bang for your buck for sure. And I eat red meat pretty much every day, especially too, and it doesn't even have to be expensive. You can even get the 80-20 ground beef at your store. And even if it's not grass-fed, it's still going to be better than a lot of these other proteins, because these cows are so magical, and they can ruminate, and they can ferment, and they can biohydrogenate and make this amazing food. All your fat-soluble vitamins are in there as well, your A, your D, your E, your K2. These are for sure, hands down, the best bang for your buck. And I love the thermogenic component, because thermogenesis, and the way I describe it, it's like It's like you be revving your car up, but it's in park. So you're not necessarily burning calories to actually create energy or move. You're just sitting there doing nothing, and you're literally burning away fat and increasing your metabolic temperature. That is very powerful. A lot of these fats, a lot of these proteins actually support what's called an uncoupling effect to the cell to create the heat, the thermogenic response to burn more. It's so powerful when you put nutrient dense food in your body.
It is, and that's why one of the, a good measure of that thermogenesis is when people are actually taking their temperature first thing in the morning,
Yeah, yeah.
every day, because in the morning, you haven't been working out, your heat hasn't been going up. So if you really want to see how your body's metabolism is working through thermogenesis, you could be able to do that on a daily basis. And that's why one of the things that we talked about when we were talking to this doc about earlier today is why we created this system called our thin method. And the reason that's important is because we can talk all day long about healthy, nutrient dense foods to put in your body to be able to help stimulate these fat burning pathways that we're talking about, help to be able to increase or make you feel more satiated and help with you with satiety. But if you don't know how to put it all together, you can eat all of these foods every single day. You may lose a little bit of weight, but you haven't actually retrained your body and or reset your metabolic thermostat, which is what the T stands for in our thin method system, right? It's a technology to be able to reset your body's metabolic thermostat. So just before we came on to the podcast right now, I was freezing because our thermostat here in the office was set at 69 degrees. And here in the podcast studio, for whatever reason, it was probably like 65 degrees inside here. But the reason that's important to understand is because if the thermostat is set at 69 degrees, it doesn't matter how hot it is outside, it's going to keep it that same temperature inside.
Yep.
Your body is the same exact way on a cellular level. It doesn't matter what foods you're putting in your body. If your metabolic thermostat is set at 69 degrees, or for you, let's talk about a weight set point. Let's say maybe your weight set point in your body is 180 pounds. That's why regardless of what it is that you try, whether it's fasting or keto or reducing calories, as soon as you stop that diet, you gain the weight back because your metabolic thermostat has been set at a cellular level and it hasn't been trained yet on where it is that your body's weight is supposed to be for where your body's metabolism is supposed to be. And that's why you will continue to keep on struggling. So as we're talking about these healthy nutrients to go into your body, just understand if you do these things and you're still struggling, you may need help, which is why we created our thin method system. And we'll give you resources on how to be able to get that system, just like the gentleman that we were talking to earlier today. But I didn't want to not talk about that because then people will get frustrated. And then we get DMs from people and we get people asking questions. They're like, hey, I tried all those different things. I lost a little bit of weight. I'm feeling so much better, but I got stuck. And you got stuck because you haven't reset that thermostat.
Yeah. In fact, speaking of DMs, we just got one earlier in our inbox. It was from a lady and she's like, guys, where do I start? What do I need to do? That's a pretty good question because she has been trying. It sounds like we'll find out more. But if a lot of this stuff isn't working for you, there's a bigger issue because it really is a zero-sum game if your thermostat hasn't been readjusted. Because after all the diets and all this fasting and all the supplements and all the keto and all the low carb and all these things you've done, when all that dust settles, you're right back where you were or worse if you don't build a strong metabolic foundation. So, all right, let's keep this train moving here. So we've talked about satiety and thermogenesis, and I know I've got a ton of foods here we can talk about as well. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. And, we don't make a lot of products, but the products we do make are all metabolically focused. So go check these out. Go to thehappyhealthylife.com. And when you get to checkout, use code podcast to save 10% off any and all of our metabolic friendly products.
Hey there. Thank you so much for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. We appreciate it. Now, if you're somebody who's curious about your metabolism, how you're doing with your metabolism, go to metabolismscore.com. take the quiz, find out where you're at.
Where do you want to keep this thing going to, Dr. Rob?
Let's talk about autophagy,
Okay.
Because we're talking about these foods going into your body, right? These foods helping your body physiologically speaking, right? Where we're getting a little sciencey in there. However, so let's talk about autophagy and what that even means. Autophagy is cellular cleanup in your body, which you got to have this cellular cleanup in order to be able to truly get your metabolism working the way it should. Why? Because we live in a freaking toxic world, okay? The more toxins that are out there, the more it creates toxins and dysfunction with the cells. And so we got to clean things up. So autophagy is your body's self-cleaning process. It removes the damaged cells. It helps to be able to repair damaged cells as well. And when that's not working, your body is going to store fat. So let's talk about this. And I think this will be one of those places where not only are we going to talk about foods that you should be eating in order to be able to lose weight and keep that weight off, but it's also things that you shouldn't be either eating, consuming, and or putting on your body as well. And this is where that happens.
Yeah, we'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly for sure. But no, autophagy is a beautiful thing. And one of the biggest things you can do to support this regenerative healing process that's just naturally occurring in your body is to look at your feeding windows. I know a lot of people do like this intermittent fasting or this time restricted eating where they're really trying to go maybe to 1 meal or 2 meals or eat it within a certain amount of time. But naturally the body, when you're not eating, will start to go into autophagy. It's where insulin stays at baseline, hormones are balanced, and the best time to do it is from dinner and then to the very next day before you break your fast. So for me, I like to do a 12-hour autophagy. What I mean is like from 8 p.m., let's say my dinner was at 8 p.m., I wouldn't eat again at least until 8 a.m. to give me a full 12 hours of autophagy, because autophagy is that cellular repair process that's so important, because there's an enzyme pathway that is activated in your body that controls how your cells use fuel, whether they use glucose or whether they use fat. It's called the AMPK pathway. We've talked about it before. Autophagy triggers this pathway. So the 12 hours is beautiful. And then when you start eating again and you get back into your routine again, as you're putting more nutrients in your body will go into what's called mTOR. That is a growth phase. And so you want the repair phase, you want the growth phase. You just don't want to stay in one or the other one too long. So you don't want to be in autophagy too long. You don't want to be in growth phase too long. So I like a 12 hours of not eating, obviously dinner to the next day when I break my fast, and then 12 hours where I'm eating my three meals per day. But autophagy is huge. And when you understand how powerful this is, eating real food along with understanding the feeding windows can give you a huge metabolic boost.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're fasting and you do have that 12-hour window like that, I think some of the viewers and listeners may say, "Hey, what do I do if I get hungry? Do you get hungry?"
I don't get hungry.
Why?
I do get hungry, but I should get hungry, but I don't stay hungry. That's the difference, right? Being hungry is great. Who doesn't like it when you're hungry and you sit down and eat a nutrient-dense meal, but you're not going to stay hungry, because in autophagy, your body gets really, really good at using everything and anything it can. Old dead, like even like a zombie cells, or they're called senescent cells. These are these dead cells that need to be basically, detoxed from your body. Autophagy can take these cells and use them and shove them through your mitochondria to create energy. It really is a cleaning out process where you're really taking out the old and you're rebuilding the new. And so that right there will be your metabolic friend. When you pair that up with the satiety component of nutrient dense foods, when you understand thermogenesis and how giving your body healthy fats, nutrient dense proteins can create heat at a tissue level, and now understanding, hey, I don't have to snack all day long anymore, because that was really the thing that we used to do. Everybody's eating your 5 to 6 meals a day. Heck, the average American's eating 18 times per day. It's not about that. Let your body's normal hormonal rhythms work. And if you do that, you'll find you aren't hungry. You really are hungry when you need to eat. And that's more of an intuitive way to eat anyway. Eat nutrient-dense food until you're full, and then eat again when you're hungry again. And usually that's going to fall around probably 2 to 3 times per day.
Yeah, so I feel like a secret weapon, and I don't know that it's really a food more than it's a mineral.
Yeah.
So a secret weapon in order to be able to maximize this autophagy happening inside your body and the cellular cleanup is our surge minerals.
Minerals.
Minerals are trace minerals as well. It's like one of those things we don't leave home without it. Actually, I forget it all the time when we are at restaurants. You always have to give it back to me because
I know.
I forget it because I take it with me everywhere.
Everywhere. You want to use these minerals are so vital. In fact, there was a huge study done in over 180 countries, and they were looking at salt consumption, which is obviously a mineral. And what they found was that the healthiest people in these 180 countries, the healthiest people were averaging around 5 grams a day of pure trace mineral salt, where the recommended dosage in America is 1.5 grams per day. So more than triple the amount in the healthiest people in the world. So trace mineral salts, unrefined salts, humic and fulvic acids that you find in our surge minerals not only help with, the remineralization of cells and tissues, but they really drive the metabolic process. They lower cortisol. They lower cortisol and adrenaline. So if you talk about lowering cortisol and adrenaline with minerals, we're already going to upregulate your metabolic profile. Salt and minerals and humic and fulvics from the detoxification component. And remember, minerals compete with heavy metals. So it gives you a nice mild detox when you eat minerals. You keep your cells full of the key sodium, potassium, magnesium, the calciums. You're giving your body all of this. If you're not eating salt, unrefined salt and minerals, you're really you're making this way harder than it needs to be. And who doesn't like salt on a nice grass-fed steak?
I think it's a great place to pause right here because even right now for the month of October for helping during this fall period of time to help the fat fall off, our promotion right now is two of the things that we just talked about. The promotion is
Yep.
our SCT oil. You buy a jar of SCT oil and you're going to get our Surge Minerals at 50% off.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Everything pairs good with SCT oil, by the way. So if you want to supercharge whatever you're doing, make sure SCT is the foundation.
Yeah, so we'll put the code in the resources in the show notes and how to be able to get that. And this again, this is helping to retrain your body in making sure that you're burning fat for fuel. So let's talk about then. Okay, so we're gonna get more into diving into the foods and how they help with the satiety, the autophagy, and then the thermogenesis because we've got to put all this together. So we talked about the feeding windows, the food timing. Let's talk about more of these foods that are going to help with the signaling inside of our body, help to clean up the cells and aid in thermogenesis. What are some of these foods that we can be eating in order to make that happen?
Well, we talked about ruminant animals. Number one, we talked about trace mineral salts, which are key. But one of the most underappreciated proteins are pastured eggs. And a lot of people sometimes will steer away from eggs because the medical industrial complex has scared everybody off and moved them away from cholesterol. When we know that cholesterol is such a vital component to all of our cellular makeup, that are a huge part of our hormones, synthesizing vitamin D. And in fact, there's a study called the Amorous study. It's a Swedish study, and they were tracking. This was a 35-year follow-up on the study, tracking people, the ones that were living over 100, and the people that lived over 100, the centenarians, all had the highest amounts of cholesterol. The highest cholesterol levels mean you will live longer. So guys, if you eat cholesterol, it's not going to raise it. If you don't eat it, your body will make it. You don't need to fear cholesterol. But with eggs, you want to make sure that it's quality. So pastured eggs, chickens that are outside getting sunlight, eating insects. You don't want chickens that are cooped up in a pen, fed, genetically modified grain, never getting outside. Stressed out animals don't create healthy food. So be careful with that. But pastured eggs, the yolks are so nutrient dense, full of choline, B vitamins, copper, some of the most beautiful nutrients that your body needs to use to have a healthy metabolism are found in these egg yolks.
I'm still trying to figure out why the egg yolks in the UK are so orange.
We
Never seen
still
anything
don't
like it.
They've got to these chickens have just got to be raised naturally. They've got to be outside getting sun, which I'm thinking, is there any sun in the UK? So I don't know. They're outside though, and they've got to be eating naturally because you're right, man. It's the most orange looking yolk. They're so beautiful. But remember with
Somebody has the answer to that. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know for sure. We just know they're raised more natural. But the big thing with egg yolks, it is they do have some unstable, some more polyunsaturated type fats. So there's double bonds in these fats. So you don't want to overheat them or overcook them. So protect that yolk. That's why I like beef tartare with 2 raw egg yolks in the beef, because raw is great. Cook them sunny side up, soft boil them. But the yolk, you want to protect that. But it's one of the best fats you can eat, which is why pastured eggs are important, because chickens are monogastric. And if they eat garbage, now that garbage is going to go into the egg, and that's not a healthy egg.
Okay, what about are there any plants or vegetables that people can eat in order to be able to lose weight or burn fat?
There's a lot. I mean, I'm going to go right to my favorite, because for me, plants, I focus on ripe fruit. Ripe fruit
Yep.
is such a treat, especially things like fresh squeezed orange juice. And I'm going to tell you right now, orange juice has been shown in multiple studies to reduce lipid oxidation. So what does that mean? That means when you eat fats, you don't oxidize them and cause free radical damage. So you're reducing the inflammatory markers in your body with fresh orange juice. It's already shown to relax the blood vessels that feed all the nutrients to your heart, tissue, and organs. It's also shown to reduce muscle damage after workouts. It's loaded with a very absorbable form of sugar called glucose, along with B1 thiamine, which thiamine is critical to the actual uptake of carbohydrates at a tissue level. So do not be afraid of fresh squeezed orange juice. And I would like to couple that with raw honey, which obviously is my favorite. Raw honey. If you have sugar cravings, you don't have cravings. You're just craving all the wrong things. Raw honey's beautiful. In fact, raw honey actually increases your insulin sensitivity. So a diabetic has insulin resistance, and a prime example of this is bears. When they come out of hibernation, they're in an insulin resistant state. They're actually, which would happen when you don't eat for months at a time. You're going to have a physiological insulin resistance. The way which is a diabetic condition, they reverse their diabetes by eating honey. Tons of studies have shown, multiple times that honey, because of the way it's broken down in the liver and it doesn't require insulin, can restore a healthy metabolic pathway. It tastes amazing. Plus, there's some awesome anti-aromatase nutrients in honey, which means you lower the estrogen burden on your body. You don't want to have an estrogen dominant body. You want to reduce that. Honey can help support that as well. So fresh squeezed orange juice, raw honey are 2 of my favorites.
Yeah, there you go. And those are all of those things that he just talked about help to support the autophagy in the body, which is super cool.
Yeah, and
Right.
there's no better way to support satiety either when you eat, especially fructose, which is one of the sugars in honey. It is a huge supporter of that pathway, and it's one of the best ways to restore glycogen, which is how your body stores glucose in the muscle and in the liver. And fructose actually stops and blunts the cortisol response right out of the gate. Satiety, blunting cortisol, restoring glycogen stores. Guys, don't be afraid to eat these foods. There is a difference between processed sugar and natural sugars in the right form.
Yeah, absolutely. So another one would be even fermented foods, for example. So people that ask us about their vegetables, fermenting them is great because it helps with the healthy bacteria, for example, in the gut. So it really helps to be able to heal the gut. I don't know anybody who's been raised probably in the last 50 years that doesn't have or has not had some kind of a gut issue just because of how it is that we were raised,
Yeah,
right?
for
And that
sure.
goes into even some of the things to avoid,
Mhm.
right? So one of the top foods even to avoid that has really destroyed our bodies is the seed oils. I know you hear us talk about it all the time. In fact, we also have some help for people that are a little bit scared to go eat at restaurants. I was looking at it today. We've got a seed oil allergy card. And if you want that seed oil allergy card, you can DM us and ask us for it. Just say seed oil card and we'll send you one. And for those of you guys who are members, we'll make sure that that's uploaded into the membership dashboard as well. But it's really cool because this card, and I've got it on my phone, So this card, you can be able to show it to them at the restaurant,
Yeah.
and let them know that, you know what, my doc says that I am allergic to seed oils. And then it looks like, if you're watching right now, this is what it looks like. I've got it right there on my phone. And what it does also is it has the healthy alternatives,
Yep.
which are the healthy fats. So it lets them know, you know what? I don't need any of these oils in my food. However, I can have butter, I can have ghee, I can have tallow, I can have coconut oil, and it gives them the healthy options on there as well, which is really cool. So now the chef knows exactly how to cook your food. We're here to help you. We want to make sure that you're avoiding all of these things that really destroy your body's metabolism.
Yeah, because those fats are damaging. They're the unsaturated fats. These are the polyunsaturated fats. These are the most unstable under heat, light, and oxygen. So they create a nasty free radical damage to your mitochondria and your cells. They're so inflammatory. In fact, they've even shown, and this is why a lot of people who eat seed oil have tons of skin conditions, because it really acts, it's got the same fatty acid profile of the plant known as poison ivy, which if you've ever played around with poison ivy, it is not fun. So it's an inflammatory response on the skin. This is an inflammatory response that you're putting inside your microbiome that can have deleterious effects. You can see it in the skin. Obviously, if you're using products that have seed oils and putting those into your skin, it's such a dangerous metabolic poison. So you just really, we harp on it all the time, but we have to, because it really is in everything. But people are more willing to work with you. Just stand up for yourself. This seed oil card can really help you, because you can just let them know, like you said, hey, this is from my doctor. I can't have these oils. These are very toxic. Let's just have these conversations and wake more people up. Why in the world would you want to cook in canola oil when you've got grass-fed butter at the table, or you bring your jar of SCT oil to the restaurant?
Yeah, I want to say this as well, because people have said this to us in the past. They're like, well, I don't really have an allergy to seed oil. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
We all have allergies.
Everybody
When you look
does.
at what an allergy is, an autoimmune response. It's your body fighting whatever's inside the body. It's fighting itself. Your body is going to fight itself because it has no idea how to break these oils down. So yes, everybody has an allergy to seed oils.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
And remember, you can't even make somebody a diabetic by giving them sugar. You have to pair sugar with seed oil. The omega-6 inflammatory response is what really creates the insulin resistance at the tissue level, because it's suffocating the mitochondria, the respiration centers of your cells. It's causing those cell membranes to become inflamed. So it's the seed oil, not just the processed sugar, is really the culprit and the foundational culprit. And this is why that 600 to 80 days of half-life that it has, does it really matter if you have a cheat meal with seed oil? I think that it does, because of the way its half-life works in the body and how it ends up in our tissue.
Yeah, so we've got probably about like 5 or so minutes left. So we're going to run through these foods really quick. And so not only are we going to run through these foods, but I think, what we should do is we're going to have our team also create a sheet. It'll be on a PDF that says, it'll have the top 10 foods on there and the top 10 things to avoid. We talked about the fermented foods. What's next on the list of good, healthy foods? Let's go quick.
Yeah, real quick. So if you're going to do any seafood, oysters have to be the biggest bang for the metabolic buck. You're going to get tons of bioavailable minerals. You're getting tons of zinc, which is in its most bioavailable form, which helps with hormones, with fertility, obviously with just increasing metabolic function. And then I like sardines if you're going to do any fish. If you're wanting any type of natural omega-3s, sardines bone in water can be phenomenal, because it's the most absorbable form of calcium when you're eating the bones that are in the sardines. So for me, seafood, omega-3s, sardines go a long, long way in water. Make sure you're not getting those in canola oil.
Yep. What else?
I've got marrow. I've got bone marrow, bone broth. I've got gelatin. These are all these are all basically, these are the components that you find in natural foods. Specifically, it's a big thing now. Everybody's buying collagen. I think gelatin is probably the least processed, but you can get this by eating the collagenous parts of the meat. That's why an 80-20 ground beef has a lot of that ground up in it. But I like to buy bone marrow, add it to SCT oil, use it on my food. Bone broth, you're getting key amino acids called L-glycine, proline, hydroxyproline. These are part of the backbone of creating glutathione, which is a master antioxidant in your body, perfect for skin, hair, nails, detox. You want to make sure you're getting plenty. And remember, a third of our protein in our body is collagenous. It's collagen based. So you don't just want to be eating muscle meats like a chicken breast or a lean steak. You want to make sure you're getting that. And then last but not least on my list was the short chain fatty acids. So make sure you're getting something that's going to have like cheeses, like rich cheeses. Raw aged cheese is a great source of short chain fats along with enzymes, probiotics. In fact, raw cheese has been shown, and this is remarkable, has been shown to reduce the death rate, mortality rates overall by 30% and reduce heart disease by 40%. Eating raw cheese, not processed cheese, not fake cheese, but when you eat real cheese, you're going to get real metabolic results. Reducing the overall mortality rate is a completely attached to raw cheeses. And you can get those now in a lot of the grocery stores, local farms, local ranches. Don't be afraid of cheese. Be afraid of fake cheese.
Yeah. Okay. So the things to, now that we talked about those things that you need to have more of, what do we need to have less of, or at least completely remove? We obviously, the seed oils was at the top of the list.
Yeah,
what else?
real quick, we said seed oils, obviously processed grain and processed sugar. That's a no-brainer. The worst one is high fructose corn syrup. We stay away from that one. Obviously, high fructose corn syrup has been modified genetically. It literally is a toxin to the human body, and it's definitely linked to fatty liver disease. And all grain in America is going to be laced with glyphosate. You just can't trust it. So stay away from all processed grain. Artificial colors and sweeteners. Guys, these things are not your friends. These weird coloring agents, I know they're trying to get those out of the food supply, but remember, there's over 10,000 chemicals and things they put in our food supply. The artificial colors and the artificial sweeteners will wreck your metabolism and cause more weight gain. So never eat those. If you want something sweet, have raw honey.
Not only that, but it's also in the products that you're putting on your skin.
Yes.
Okay. Your body's absorbing those. We just did a video at the grocery store, just in the aisle, with all of the cosmetic stuff and the lotions and all those things. And so even avoiding anything with chemicals, dyes, perfumes, those things as well. You want to avoid those.
Avoid them like your life depends on it, because it does. And then another one is roasted nuts and seeds. A lot of people aren't sure about this. You know, we don't really advocate eating lots of nuts and seeds because there are so many anti-nutrients and defense chemicals, specifically phytic acid, which can chelate key minerals. But what's even worse is when you roast nuts and seeds, the oils in the nuts and seeds are polyunsaturated fatty acids. So they become rancid and cause massive free radical damage. It's a grenade going off in your cells like shrapnel, destroying healthy tissue. So we're not a big fan of roasted nuts and seeds. I don't think it's a health food. Raw vegetables. So it may be shocking to some of you, but raw vegetables, remember, plants have defense chemicals. Humans can run away. Animals can fight or flight. We can fight or we can run. Plants can't run away. They defend themselves by making toxins. And raw plants have the most amount of toxins because you can break down and neutralize a lot of toxins by cooking them, fermenting them, like you talked about, Dr. Rob. Cooking them down, fermenting, germinating, sprouting, pressure cooking, peeling, de-seeding. But raw vegetables can cause serious problems. Bloating can affect your thyroid with things like goitrogens, oxalates. So stop eating all these raw plants. They're not your friend. Remember, the professionals in the raw plant department are cows. And then fish oil. Fish oil, don't ever take fish oil. This is a polyunsaturated fatty acid. It's worse than seed oil because it's so unstable under heat, light, and oxygen. You don't want to be taking fish oil that's been extracted from a fish, put into a jar or a capsule, and then taking that down. You're going to cause real problems, real oxidative stress. So stop taking fish oil. Eat real fish. Isolated synthetic vitamins, things like vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E, multivitamins. These are petroleum-based toxins that are all owned by the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry, they make the drugs and they make the vitamins. So make sure you know what you're getting. And then conventional pork and chicken, these are animals that are mistreated. They're stuck in these pens. They're not getting sunlight. They're fed horrible food. They're pumped full of hormones. They are monogastric animals, so you have to make sure if you're getting pork, if you're getting chicken, make sure they're raised naturally. And then lastly would be legumes, things like beans, nuts, and seeds. These all have what are called prolamines and lectins. These are anti-nutrients that can wreck your gut, shut down your metabolism, and cause you to have real insulin resistance. So be aware of those. Those are just some of the ones you want to avoid. But I can tell you right now, if you just start putting in the real foods we talked about and start eliminating a lot of these foods that you may even think are healthy, you can start to see a difference. But if you're already doing that and you're not seeing the results, remember, what's more important is not always what you're eating. What does your body do when you eat it? Does it burn it or does it store it? And that's all about your individual and specific metabolism.
There you go. Thanks again for listening. Next week, you're not going to want to miss that episode. We're going to be talking about how to eat more and way less.
What a
you want to be here for
concept.
that. So thanks for listening. Like the show, share it, 5-star review, give us your comments, DM us at the H2 Life if you have any questions, wins. We love to hear all of the wins. And yeah, we love you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Healthy Life podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure to follow them on Instagram at the H2 Life or on YouTube and Facebook at the Happy Healthy Guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.